Hello, I'm going to give you today a short lecture on what economics is all about, on what the subject matter is, on what the methodology it follows, and this should help one and inform one in understanding the work that one is expected to do here in this particular course. Okay. Now, let's look at this, our slide here. So what is economics? Okay? Economics is defined as a social science that deals with the allocation of scarce resources among alternative uses to attain desired ends. If it is a social science, then it is a science. So what is a science? The accepted definition of science from 1930s, developed by the German philosopher Karl Popper, is that it is a process of falsification of hypotheses. Okay? Since it is a process, it means that any subject matter can actually be studied in a scientific way. What matters is how you study it. Okay? And the how of science involves what is called the falsification of hypotheses. So the starting point of any scientific work is to know how to correctly formulate a hypothesis. A hypothesis is a statement that will be subjected to scientific analysis. Therefore, a hypothesis has a very specific form. It usually is a simple sentence. Okay? And a simple sentence has a subject, a verb, and a direct object. Okay? The verb is supposed to establish a relationship between the subject and the object. So acceptable verbs would be, say, increase, decrease, accelerate, or decelerate. So as an example, you have this argument from macroeconomics that says a decrease in interest rates increases investment. That is a hypothesis. Investment, which is the direct object, is a particular concept for which data are readily available. The interest rate changes also would have particular data available. So one can actually collect data and find out if indeed the decrease in interest rates increase investment. Now, the understanding that the relationship is from investment from interest rate, not the other way around, is actually based upon a theory. There's a theory in macroeconomics that says that the interest rate is the one that causes the increase or decrease in investment, not the other way around. Okay? Which is why when one were to do a research paper in this subject matter, first and foremost, one must have a theory. It's a theory that comes from the subject matter that you study. Right now here, which is in economics, whether it be economics of European integration, development economics, and the like, there are many theories there which are attempts at explaining the relationship among different types of factors, in this case, interest rate and investment. And by formulating the hypothesis the way it is, okay, one can therefore collect data. Okay? And if you've done statistical work, you can therefore find out if there's a statistically significant relationship between the decrease in interest rate and the increase in investment. And in science, the primary aim of science is to discover the truth. But science discovers the truth by being 100% certain of what is false. as to what is really true, for those who have taken up statistics, you know that there's such a thing as a level of confidence. With the level of confidence only usually goes up to 95%, which means that you allow for the possibility that 5% of the time, the relationship that you studied for which you obtained a definitive conclusion might not exactly hold for various reasons. Okay? This will be very different if you want to write a paper that is managerial in nature, because a management paper or a paper that is involved in policy, the formulation of policy, aims at purposely change towards a well-defined goal, such as being able to raise the company profitability, being able to raise labor productivity, being able, if you are in government, being able to raise overall employment and reduce poverty and the like. The goal here is something that you are 100% very, very much into, something that you believe in. So a paper that is scientific in nature would have a very, very different approach and conclusion from one that is a management paper or a policy paper. Okay, now, with economics as a social science, its subject matter is the allocation. Okay? Allocation means a decision. It is a decision which would therefore reflect what one really wants. When you have surveys, oftentimes people are asked if they believe in something, if they want to do something and the like, and then they could actually say what they want. Okay? They could be asked, are they racist? Would they mind having as a neighbor someone who comes from a different race or a different religion? And then you can tally and they would make their own responses. However, another way of finding out and studying the behavior of people is to looking at the decisions that they have actually done, that they have actually made. So therefore, one would then find out exactly where one lives and what would be the race or the religion or the ethnicity of the people that lives in the neighborhoods. Then you'll see there's a certain pattern if people are actually avoiding people of a different race, of a different religion, of a different ethnicity or not. And in economics, we tend to therefore look at these particular decisions as being very, very important as a real manifestation of what people really want. Okay? And the decision here of allocating involves the allocation of scarce resources. Okay? Resources are anything that's useful for the production of goods and services. Okay? And the usual categories would be land, which includes natural resources and space, labor, which is the physical capability of human beings, capital, of which you have physical capital, which would include your machinery, equipment, buildings, land improvements, financial capital, which would include money and other forms of financial assets, human capital, which would refer to the education and skills that individual human beings would possess, and social capital, which refers to the level of volunteerism and civic mindedness and trust that people have in a community. All these resources as regarded as useful in the production of goods and services. Social capital is important because you can tap on people's willingness to volunteer their time and resources to gain and attain a particular project, such as cleanliness of the neighborhood or cleaning public beaches and the like, so that these can be attained with minimum cost for paying wages, because these people were willing to provide it for free as a volunteer. Now, what makes these resources scarce is that there are not enough resources to satisfy all human wants. And human wants would be individual wants and collective wants. An individual want is a want that can be satisfied by what is known as a private good, which means a good that is rival in consumption. What it means is once you have consumed it, no one else can. So if you purchase a burger and you eat it, then that's it. No one else can consume it. Okay? And it satisfies an individual want, which is a desire to satiate your tastes or in order to relieve your hunger. But when you have a collective want, such as, say, clean air, your enjoyment of clean air in a particular city does not prevent others from enjoying it as well. Or when you use a road, you're using a road does not stop others from using the road just as well. Okay? So the collective one is satisfied by what is known as public goods. Goods which are non-rival in consumption, meaning to say that when you use it, you're not able to stop others from using it as well. Now, with individual wants, okay, these are satisfied by private goods, and these are more easily provided for by the market through the mechanism of supply and demand. But for the provision of necessary public goods, such as clean air, environmental cleanup, public order, peace and order, administration of justice, and security in the country's borders and the like. Okay? These are more efficiently provided for by government, where government is able to impose taxes on all citizens and then can use the taxes in order to finance these particular public goods. Now, human wants, whether individual or collective, are unlimited, which means they cannot all be satisfied by the available resources, and that is what makes resources scarce. And that is why some decision, some allocation has to be made, which means that some wants will be fulfilled, others not. Or the wants of some individuals may be fulfilled, those of others may be fulfilled less, or perhaps will be fulfilled much later on. So choices have to be made, and in making these choices, there will always be the case of many people who might be adversely affected by a choice that one has made. Okay. Now, these choices are done among what are known as alternative uses. Okay? When there's a particular use in an alternative, what this means is that these are the equally desirable choices. Okay? When one makes a particular choice, for example, taking a course like this, you could do other things, such as take a course in fine arts, take a course in sociology, take a course in culinary arts, take a course in mathematics, or perhaps take a physical education course. There's an infinity of other things that one can choose apart from this particular course one has taken. However, the alternative was that particular thing that you really would have wanted to get apart from this particular course. And only that particular thing would be called the alternative. And why is this important? Because then you can establish that when you made this particular choice, you gave up on that alternative, and that becomes the opportunity cost, or the particular choice which ended up in giving up something. When you use the word costs, there are three main aspects to this. There's the actual cost, which means the actual monetary outlay that you actually spent. Then there's the implicit cost, which means that in case you volunteered your time, then there was no cost outlay on the part of the organization that got you as a volunteer, but there is an implicit cost too, which means the time for which you could have earned something, you could have made money out of it. But then there's opportunity cost, which is the economic cost, and that is what was given up. the alternative, the equally desirable choice that one gave up in order to do something. And that becomes your economic cost or your opportunity cost. And these decisions are aimed at attaining desired ends. And what are the desired ends? The desired ends of an individual, the desired ends of a society, go beyond mere economic analysis. Okay? It's said that if a country wants to aim for higher levels of income per capita, lower poverty rates, improved infrastructure, mass transit, and more equitable opportunities to attain education, healthcare, and the like, oftentimes the aim of these is something beyond economics, such as for individual human beings to attain happiness, to make it easier for human beings to attain happiness, for society to attain harmony. And these are desired ends. So these desired ends can be attained by a variety of ways. But within economics, these desired ends can be attained by setting aside the resources needed in order to make these particular goals come true, come alive. Now, when one does economic analysis, there are three general levels to that. There's microeconomic analysis, which is the economic behavior of the average individual unit. So in microeconomics, one studies, for example, the average household. And the average household is a consumer and also a supplier of labor. Then there would be the average individual firm, where the average individual firm is assumed to be profit maximizing and one who is into the demand for labor and the demand for other forms of factors of production, like capital and the like. And these units interact, and one area that they interact would be in the market by way of the supply and the demand. The demand, which is the summation of the demand of individual units, and supply, which is the summation of the supply coming from individual suppliers. Now, macroeconomics studies the economic behavior of aggregates. Okay? There is a logical difference between the behavior of aggregates and the behavior of individuals. So in macroeconomics, one studies the behavior of all consumers. So you have the investment function. You have the behavior of all firms. So you have the investing function. There's the behavior of government, the entirety of government. Then you have the behavior of firms that are engaged in the export and import of goods and services. Okay, so these are all on the macro level, and also it's also macroeconomics where one studies monetary issues, the demand for and the supply of money, because money is the one commodity that is present in all transactions. Okay. Now, a macroeconomic factor such as inflation, interest rate, exchange rate, and the like can affect a microeconomic situation, such that inflation affecting the demand for goods and services by households. But a microeconomic situation cannot logically influence the macroeconomic level. So when a firm or the firms in a particular industry are increasing, expanding profits and hiring more laborers, that may not necessarily be true of the entire economy, because there will always be some other firms who are not making a lot of profit and therefore might need to be laying off workers. Okay? So one has to be very clear the difference between a microeconomic method of analysis and a macroeconomic analysis. Now, development is the study of long-term change. One talks here about the expansion of resources over time. And therefore, when you talk of development, one covers data, say from 1960 up to 2015 or even 2019, and to see how patterns have changed. And that is another level of analysis in economics. So we end here as our introduction, and we will then look for other topics later on.